In the summer of 1996, Idaho Falls was the kind of place where people left their front doors unlocked. It was a quiet, close-knit community where violent crime felt like something that only happened somewhere else. But on the morning of June 13, that sense of security vanished forever. An 18-year-old woman named Angie Dodge moved into her first apartment in Idaho Falls, Idaho. She was full of life, independent, and ready for what came next. On the morning of June 13th, friends found her body on the floor of that apartment. She had been raped and stabbed to death. Her throat was slashed so deeply, she was nearly decapitated. A bloody handprint and semen left at the scene told investigators a stranger had come in the night. But solving the case would take far longer than anyone imagined and destroy an innocent man's life along the way.
Angie Ray Dodge was born in 1977. Raised in a close-knit family in Idaho Falls, she had 3 brothers and a mother, Carol, who adored her. At 5'11" and strong from wrestling with her siblings, Angie wasn't one to back down. In May 1996, just weeks after high school graduation, she moved into a second-floor apartment on I Street. She worked at a local beauty supply store and enjoyed hanging out with friends by the Snake River. The night before her death, she had visited her mother. Their last goodbye was a hug and a kiss. "I love you," Angie said. It was the last time Carol would see her daughter alive. Early the next morning, Angie didn't show up for work. A coworker went to check on her. The door was unlocked. Inside, the scene was horrific. Blood everywhere. Angie lay dead on the floor. Investigators determined she had been attacked between late night and morning. The killer left behind a strong DNA profile from semen and a bloody palm print, evidence that should have led straight to the perpetrator. But in 1996, DNA technology was still evolving, and pressure mounted to solve the brutal murder of a young woman in a trusting community where doors were often left unlocked.
Police interviewed dozens of people. Angie's boyfriend and friends were quickly cleared by DNA. Months passed with no arrest. Then, in January 1997, investigators focused on a group of young men who hung out near the river. One of them, 20-year-old Christopher Tapp, knew Angie casually. His DNA did not match the crime scene evidence. He denied any involvement and even passed a polygraph early on. But over more than 28 hours of interrogation, across 23 days, sometimes with his attorney present, detectives pushed hard. They suggested he could face the death penalty. They promised immunity if he confessed and implicated others. Tapp's story changed multiple times. Eventually, he gave a confession claiming he participated with 2 other men, one of whom, his friend Benjamin Hobbs, was also cleared by DNA. Despite no physical evidence linking him to the crime, and despite his initial alibi supported by witnesses, Chris Tapp was charged with first-degree murder, rape, and use of a deadly weapon. In 1998, a jury convicted him. He was sentenced to 30 years to life. For the next 2 decades, Chris Tapp maintained his innocence from prison, while Angie's family, especially her mother Carol, never stopped searching for the truth.
Carol Dodge refused to accept that the man behind bars was the killer. The DNA didn't match. She pushed for re-examination of the evidence. She reviewed interrogation tapes and saw the coercion. With the help of the Idaho Innocence Project and forensic experts, she fought to have Chris Tapp's conviction re-evaluated. Years of advocacy followed. Carol's persistence kept the case alive when many had moved on. Then, around 2017 to 2019, a revolutionary tool changed everything: investigative genetic genealogy. Using the perpetrator's DNA from the 1996 crime scene, genealogists Cece Moore and Parabon Nanolabs built family trees from public databases. They narrowed it down through distant relatives until they identified a strong lead: Brian Lee Dripps Sr. Dripps had lived directly across the street from Angie's apartment at the time of the murder. He had even been interviewed by police in the initial neighborhood canvass, but was never pursued further. In 2019, detectives followed him, collected a discarded cigarette butt, and confirmed a full DNA match to the semen and other evidence from Angie's apartment. On May 15, 2019, Brian Dripps was arrested. During questioning, he confessed in detail. He admitted entering Angie's apartment, raping her, and stabbing her to death. He claimed he had been heavily intoxicated by drugs and alcohol and never intended to kill her. Drips pleaded guilty in 2021 and was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 20 years before parole eligibility.
In July 2019, a judge exonerated Christopher Tapp after more than 20 years behind bars for a crime he did not commit. He was finally free. In 2022, the city of Idaho Falls settled his wrongful conviction lawsuit for $11.7 million. Angie Dodge's murder exposed the fragility of justice, how pressure to solve a horrific crime can lead to devastating mistakes, and how relentless love and new science can help correct them. Carol Dodge lost her daughter, but gained a voice for the wrongfully convicted. Chris Tapp lost 2 decades of his life, but emerged with his name cleared. Brian Drips finally faced accountability for the unimaginable violence he inflicted that night in 1996. Yet, for those who knew Angie, the pain remains. Her life, cut short at 18, reminds us that some wounds never fully heal. But truth, however late, still matters.